All right, good morning, everybody. Today we are going to practice double-digit multiplication, and we're going to use the area model. The easy part about using the area model as a strategy is that it enables us to be able to break everything out by place value and go from having these two large numbers, two-digit multiplication numbers, to simply being single-digit multiplication and then using bully zeros to tack on and make it a much easier process. All right, so what we're doing today is we're going to do 23 multiplied by 75. The first thing we do is we create a large square. Now on your paper, obviously you can't make it this large, but you'll make it large enough that you can fit all of your work inside of it, all right? Within this box, and we start to realize when we make this association, because this is going to represent the width of 23, this is going to represent the length of 75, we're like, wow, this is kind of like area that we've already done, right? So it's cool to make these connections. Then what we're going to do is we're going to draw lines first vertically, and I'm going to separate this square into a larger space to represent what's going to be the tens place, and a smaller place that will represent the ones place. I'll do the same thing horizontally. And the reason I choose in order to be larger than smaller, because we know that tens place comes first and it's larger, ones place after. So when we read this going downwards vertically, we start with the larger, which is the tens place, and then the bottom we have the ones place. All right, now I'm going to take these two digits and I'm going to write them up here. I'm sorry, not digits, numbers. They're not digits yet. Okay? So this whole side is going to represent the width of 23. This vertical side is going to represent 75. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to break this up. So I'm going to take this 23 and break it into a tens place, which is 2 in the tens place, or 2 tens, which is 20. And then in the ones place, 3. We can even read this 23 just as the number is. And I'm going to do the same thing here. So in my tens place here, I'm going to take 75 and break it into 70, 5, 70 representing the 7 tens, 5 representing the 5 ones. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to treat this using my relationship that I understand about squares and rectangles. I know that opposite sides are the same lengths. So if this is 70, then this is certainly 70. If this is 20, then this is 20. If this is 5, then this is 5. If this is 3, this is 3. Okay? Now I'm doing that specifically because I'm going to find the area of each one of these squares or rectangles. Okay? All right, so then I take this length times width. I've got a 70 and a 20, and I'm going to simply write in the corner my multiplication problem. On this side, I've got 70 and I've got 3. On this side, I've got 5 and 20. And finally here, I have 5 and 3. And again, area equals length times width. I'm doing my length times my width for each one of these spaces. And then finally, I'm just going to solve them, each of those individual problems. Now here's where this comes in to play, that it's really cool and it's actually a lot easier than doing these large scale problems. And this is very accessible for anybody to be able to do these multiplication problems. If I cover up or don't worry about the zeros at first, I realize that these are all just a bunch of single digit problems. Here is 7 times 2. 7 times 2 is 14. Then I just add those 2 zeros back. Okay? Forget about that 0 for a second, and I'm just doing 7 times 3, which is 21. Add the 0 back. Here I'm doing 5 times 20, which is really 5 times 2. That's 10. Add the 0 back. And careful, because a misconception that people often make is once they've done this, 5 times 2 equals 10, mentally they're like, oh, there's the 0. No, that's not the 0. We have to add the extra 0 back. The 5 times 2 is its own separate little piece. All right? And then finally here, we're not going to have any zeros. We're going to do 5 times 3, which equals 15. So now what we have is each of these quadrants within this larger rectangle, and it is a rectangle because I know the width is different from the length. I have individual areas, and I simply will add those up together, and that will be my final answer for 23 times 75. So that's what we're going to do right now. And I personally like to go from greatest to least. The reason I do so is that it lines up everything with place value. If you do struggle with place value, you can simply write a grid to make sure that you're not making any errors as you're lining up the numbers to be able to add them. Okay. Normally I wouldn't, but for those of you who want to make sure that you have all of the strategies you need. So after that, I add the 210, and the 100, and then I add the 15, and I will simply set it up as an addition problem, just as I would if I was doing a standard algorithm. Okay. And my answer is 1,725. 1,725. And of course, don't forget your comma. All right? So So I'm going to box this out so we see that this is the answer to this multiplication problem. Now, is this the only strategy? Absolutely not. But this is now one accessible strategy for you guys to be able to use in order to solve this and have no excuses not being able to do this. This is a great strategy that breaks it up in a nice, simple way. This is called the area model. All right. Thank you very much, everybody.